Well, happy 4th of July, folks. Today is Friday, the 4th of July, and we've got a brand new tropical depression just sitting off the southeast coastline, pretty much due east of Jacksonville. And it is forecast to intensify modestly to become our next named storm, which would be Chantal. Short-lived system, just like Andrea and Barry, but nonetheless will bring about impacts, especially it being a holiday weekend when so many folks are at the coastline. So here's the latest. A tropical storm could form anytime this weekend, likely in the next 12 to 18 hours. It'll get that upgrade to garner that name as Chantal. Gusty squalls for the Carolinas and Virginia over the next 36 hours or so, straight on through the remainder of the weekend, really, from south to north. And rip currents are going to be a big threat this weekend from Myrtle Beach, Hilton Head, up to Wilmington, through the Outer Banks of North Carolina, down to Charleston and places like that. So keep that in mind. If you are watching this video on vacation in those areas, that's going to be a big factor out at the ocean fronts. All right, Tropical Depression 3, here's the stats on it. 35-mile-per-hour winds with gusts up to 45. Looks a whole lot healthier than it did just 24 hours ago. And it's sitting pretty much right on top of the Gulf Stream, which is just an endless supply of warm sea surface temperatures from the south. And of course, tropical systems thrive off of warm ocean waters, and we certainly have that here. You can see the blowup of convection closer to the center here. There was some discussion whether to call this a subtropical depression or a tropical depression. A subtropical depression is just kind of like a hybrid between a coastal low and a developing tropical system, but it looks like this has way more tropical characteristics, and it looks to be gaining the majority of its energy from the warm ocean waters here, which is why they went with a tropical depression rather than a subtropical depression. Semantics, though. It's going to become a tropical storm as it lifts north, but here it is right now, and it will probably for the next 12 hours, since it's moving so slow to the north at 2, sit over these warm waters, and with it moving from south to north, the Gulf Stream, you've got an endless supply, a replenishment of warm ocean waters here, so it could pop, becoming a little bit stronger than what they're anticipating, which is still going to be a weak storm. So it's not going to be something that goes down in the record books or anything like that. Here's the official track from the National Hurricane Center at 5 o'clock, up to 40-mile-per-hour winds. That's the threshold to become a tropical storm. So low end, getting the name, though, of Chantal, and then it builds to the northwest and then eventually turns due north as we get towards landfall, likely before sunrise on Sunday morning near Charleston, South Carolina, as a tropical storm. Rip current risk, maybe some ocean overwash in these areas with the winds coming on shore, especially to the east of the storm center there. It builds inland, of course. Once it's over land, it loses its energy source, so it rapidly decays. But it will build north and be to the west of areas like the Outer Banks, west of Wilmington, west of Norfolk. So that outermost bit of moisture will get thrown northwards. And even with a weakening tropical storm, when you're on the east side of it, the dirty side, you still have that overall spin in the atmosphere. So some of the banding that may lift north may need to be watched very, very carefully for maybe some water spouts near the coastal locations or maybe some weak tornadoes embedded with some of these squalls. You always got to keep that in mind with a decaying tropical system that's over land. We got that spin, and the friction with land kind of adds to it, makes it just a little bit easier for some of those storms to acquire a little bit of some rotation. Here's a look at the model trend here. There's no big variations in all the models. Good agreement here, taking it to the west-northwest and then due north and then northeast as it gets picked up by an inbound front and shoots out off into southern New England, or maybe just stays south of there into the Atlantic. Here's how Futurecast sees things here. A developing area of low pressure, a tropical storm just headed right towards Charleston. The model here does take it just due east of there, meaning the worst would probably be out towards Myrtle Beach and out towards Wilmington. Worst as in some heavier rain, maybe some gusty winds, that sort of deal, and some ocean overwash and the rip current risk. Builds inland as we get into late Saturday night, early Sunday morning. This model's a little bit quicker with it. Has it well over land, likely just to the east of Charlotte, in between Charlotte and Raleigh by lunchtime on Sunday. But here's those outer bands stretching north. I would definitely keep a close eye on some of these with some spinners possibly involved in that. And then everything starts to fall apart as it moves along the I-95 corridor and then exits to the north and east by Monday afternoon. So coastal low impacts here, or pretty much tropical storm Chantal impacts, is going to be the large swell, strong rip currents, and the beach overwash being an issue for the coming days. How much rain could we see along the immediate coast? A couple of inches possible, 2 to 4 inches forecast here on the European model. Out in Wilmington, maybe 1 to 2 out in places like the Outer Banks, and Pleasant Hill about 1 to 2 inches as well. So a good soaking in some of these areas. But that's the latest on what will likely become Chantal in the short term here. If you've got any questions this holiday weekend, you can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Enjoy the rest of your 4th of July holiday.